Hello out there. Welcome to our live stream show called From Clue to Close, Optimizing the Sales Funnel. You're going to get a lot out of this presentation today. It's a panel discussion with me and some great thought leaders that we all focus on optimizing the sales funnel from click to close, top to bottom. And we're focusing on tech firms, but really, if you're not a tech firm, it could apply to you as well. So what I want to do is introduce myself, and then we'll go around the Hollywood Squares and introduce everybody else. I'm Paul Mosenson. I'm a fractional CMO, founder of New Spark Consulting and New Spark Marketing. I focus on top of the funnel lead generation and digital marketing strategy, and all the way from, creating content to optimizing websites, to conversion optimization, all the way through building email funnels and things like that, so that we can build quality leads and give them off to everybody else on this call to close them. So that's what I focus on, and we'll get more involved with that, but that's what I do. And next I want to introduce Bill Dillon.
Hi, I'm Bill Dillon. I'm with eLead Corp. I consult with small to mid-sized technology companies about appointment setting. I've done work for channel partners for Microsoft, for Avaya, Mitel. I've worked with Dell to help train their folks on appointment setting, Nortel as well when they were around. So I've got about 3 decades of experience working with inside and outside sales teams and helping them to develop pipelines and set appointments.
Great. Tim?
Tim Dodd, a bit of the odd duck in the group. I started out as a programmer and then either was not good at writing code or too social, so I got into sales. Primarily have been doing fractional sales reps for cloud companies, so if you can't afford a full-time sales rep, I can come in, or if you're just looking for sales qualified leads. And I mostly focus on using LinkedIn and social selling as the initial channel, but also using email and cold calling and some other tactics that the other guys use as well.
Okay. John?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. John Reed. I am with Pinnacle Consulting, Managing Director. I provide fractional CRO, VP of Sales services to small to medium-sized companies. Been in sales leadership for 25, 30 years plus, ranging from startups to large multi-billion-dollar companies. And services I provide help those target companies with everything from being the VP of Sales on a fractional basis, helping with organizational issues, leading the team, to analyzing the infrastructure to support the sales activities, to helping with things like incentive programs and hiring and leading the team. So welcome everybody. Looking forward to a healthy discussion.
Great. Yeah, we're going to be interactive here. Just a little bit of housekeeping in the beginning is I hope everybody sees a comment box to the right. As we go through this, feel free to write comments or questions, but we're going to answer those questions at the end of our presentation because we're being recorded. And so I appreciate that. And we'll play it by ear. And other than that, though, we try to, teach you guys something and give some insights. That's our goal, right? So what I want to do is get started here with, we all have things we're going to talk about through the funnel and how to optimize that. Now, like I said, I focus on lead magnets. And when you think about what a lead magnet is, it's a white paper, it's a webinar, it's a quiz, newsletter, something where we're attracting people with clues. And that's really the whole idea of, driving clues to your website. And a clue is basically there's something going on at a company, a trigger event that's making them be attracted to our emails or our ads, social comments, where there's something that they're learning and they're saying, maybe we need to look at this further, right? And that's what a lead magnet is. It's basically, it's a topic that solves a business problem. If you utilize the right targeting and the right channels, there's a lot of testing you can do with it, but you build them. And that's the whole idea of marketing anyway, is to, encourage people to pay attention to a message because they have pain. And those companies that have pain will give up their email address for these lead magnets, white papers, ebooks, things like that. And we've seen them. We probably all have done them on this call, right? And that's really what we focus on. It's kind of like what we call, intent marketing. You probably heard that word before. Where there's, you've seen like there's different platforms like Bombora and other things like that where they're targeting intent. And there's also tools that you can add to a website where they track people coming to your website and reverse engineer and find those contacts. There's lots of ways to target intent. We're focusing on the lead magnet through the funnel because I know salespeople do love to, as you know, John, is to engage with people who already have that problem. It takes some of the qualification out of the way, right? Versus going cold. But that's what we're focusing on here is the clue part of it. And I don't know if anybody has any follow up on that as far as our panel goes and their experience with this, but fire away.
Yeah, so for anyone that's using, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, there is an intent field in there. So you can see primarily for software, right? So like in my case, maybe I'm looking at companies that are looking at lead generation software. But if you're looking for more services based, there's tools like Apollo, Seamless, all those types of tools that will allow you to get insight. So if someone's looking for software development services, you can get that intent from that data.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bill, you can chime in here, but
Sure.
When we talk about, okay, we have a lead magnet, how do we market it, right? We just talked about, there's really, we'll get to Bill's section in a second, but we talk about, I call it like the 3 pillars of lead generation. It works for tech, it works for any companies, really. I mean, the big picture, okay, you have search engines, SEO, and
Right.
but when you have lead magnets, they're not necessarily looking for the company yet, but they might be looking for a solution on their own, and the white papers and guides can attract people. But but when you talk about inbound, we mentioned that's social advertising, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever,
Sure.
Reddit, out, and all these different channels, even trade publications and things like that. You've seen a lot of publications there. But then we go to the outbound part of it too. I know that outbound can be somewhat, I guess, controversial whether we should do it or not, because I know there's a setup. But Bill, what do you think? I mean, we always talk about, at least if you do get a cold list and you promote a lead magnet, at least that's another way of at least grabbing names with some intent, right? What are your thoughts?
Sure. But you've got a couple of issues to begin with. One, getting good data today is really difficult. In a normal environment, contact data degrades at 38.6% a year. So every 100 contacts you get, 40 of them are going to change. And typically when we would start with a client, we would go in and the first thing we do is identify the right people. The better the data, the better the results. In today's environment, we don't know. I mean, I spoke to a marketing company who just bought some data and 40% of the information was accurate. So maintaining that data is something that's very difficult. Getting the email addresses for contacts, and like you said, once you've got that intent data, then doing the outreach to them. But just because they've expressed an interest doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get them on the phone right away. And the thing about calling is there is a consistency to it. For X number of dials, you get X number upon your marketplace, and then for X number of reaches, you're going to get a certain number of first-time appointments from that, or some pipelined opportunities. Some people that do actually express an interest and want some kind of follow-up activity in the future. And that's the thing that's really difficult today is developing those metrics for a specific company or offering. And then also building and maintaining that contact database, because you've got to maintain it yourself. Emails could still be active, but or maybe they're not getting to the right person. A lot of times we'll get a hold of somebody and find out that they don't handle that. They used to handle it, don't anymore. And even with voicemails, a lot of times are just kind of dormant and left active. So you don't really know until you actually get on the phone and engage with somebody. I mean, we've set appointments on a Friday and Monday that person's not there any longer. So yeah, it's a challenge, especially for large data providers. It's a real challenge to keep good contact information. So companies really need to build that database and maintain it themselves and make sure that they're, that they're targeting the right person. And then also, once you do get somebody on the phone, to find out, exactly what they're looking for, why they're looking for it, and then develop some kind of, as I said, follow-up activity from that.
But from a best practice, though, it's a good point. When we talk about like lead magnets and the clues, there's two scenarios here. One thing is promoting the lead magnet in the first place, which is an outbound strategy, and that's where you put in your ICPs and all the targeting, and then your verified emails, and cross your fingers that someone downloads and engages, right? And then, but when that happens, though, the other scenario is what we call, I guess, the term like telenurture, right? Which is part of a sequence that you guys manage, where maybe through other channels, not just cold, but everything, an email comes in from a download, right, from a lead magnet, but you still need to engage them, right, with this cadence of further emails and follow-ups, and they know that's going to happen, right? When I download it, said, yeah, I know I'm going to get followed up on, but I have the business problem. And that's where the importance of the topic and really building the trust, right?
Exactly. And you're not going to find that out until you actually get on the phone with them. Were they tasked with, finding out information about this? Is something they're genuinely interested in, or just looking? And once again, until you get the opportunity to speak to that individual, it's really difficult to find out exactly what's going on if there's a legitimate interest.
Well,
but it's a good place to start.
I would think also, Bill, that whether that first contact, to try to qualify the first contact, whether it's coming from inbound or outbound, is a real decision maker. Typically they're information gatherers or whatever. If they've demonstrated intent or interest in your company or your products, trying to triangulate who in the company is really the economic or decision makers. Your vetting of the database is critically important, and that's where your services can come in.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you do need a champion to get to the right person within the organization, and sometimes they are the ones that, I remember sitting in the meeting with the CEO of a business, and they had struggled before with appointment setting. And he says, we only want to meet with decision makers. I said, well, it took me three meetings with people below you to get to this point.
Right.
We closed the business with them, but you're not always going to get to that person, right out of the box, but identifying, what the process is and who the people involved in the decision-making process is, part of the initial kind of discovery that you're going to be doing.
Yeah. The other interesting thing with like LinkedIn is you can sell to all of those influencers, the end users, the people a couple, layers down from your ideal customer profile or your decision maker. So, using social media, it's a lot easier. When I first started sales, there's a book called Selling DeVito, Very Important Top Officer, right? So it's always important to start at the top. But I think there's a lot of strategies around social selling that you can build that groundswell up to help you get in front of the decision maker. And you can collect a lot of intel, a lot of insights on what's valuable to that person, what's valuable to the team, to be able to position yourself in the best light when you do get that meeting with the decision maker.
Well, the question, though, or the point, though, is we're going back to the lead magnet. Somebody downloaded it, title, maybe it's a C-level, maybe it's not, right? If it's a manager of IT, right, and you're trying to target another title like the CIO, right? Well, that's a person, at least we know that there's an issue with the company, right? Now, you want to engage with this person who downloaded, but also, like you said, is try to, if you have a really good solution, to get his bosses involved, right? Because, many of these companies have multiple stakeholders making decisions. That's why it takes so long, including the CFO, right? So, but that's part of the sales process.
Right. And that handoff also is important, and it varies from company to company, right? So you've got activity, let's call it, that's occurring in the digital world, whether it's LinkedIn or just on the websites, et cetera. Who in the company should be handling those inputs from lead magnets? Typically it's marketing or business development, but it varies from company to company on what metrics trigger that being handed off to sales, for example. Each company might want to do that a little bit quicker than any other given company, just to try to optimize the resources and the cost of the resources to qualify opportunities. But the opportunities should be continuously qualified from first engagement through to handing off the sales and continuing through the sales process to ultimately, ideally, closure, and then follow up after you close the deal for follow-on business.
Well, circling back, to this process, I'm gonna, we got a question on our chat, and we'll just cover that a little bit. We're talking about the clue here, right? And and there could be a message where, what if the company doesn't realize they have a problem? Well, that's a little harder to do, right? Because that's where constant, education comes in, I think, with content, right? And, building trust, because, what do a lot of companies buy things for anyway, especially in tech? You can make a list: more efficient, save money, more features, that's all, in anything in marketing, we're trying to, overcome complacency, right? And get people to make a decision faster. That's the sell game, but building trust, right? But there's all these different scenarios about how to do that the right way. And again, the clues at least tell you that there's something going on, and it makes it a more efficient sales process than pure cold, obviously, because it does take a while. But any thoughts?
So sometimes clients might not even know there's a challenge, or they might not even see the opportunity that your service, your product is going to add value, right? So there's a couple techniques that I've used, like the challenger sale, where you're producing meaningful content that is driving awareness, getting them to think about the problem differently, right? And you can do this with lead magnets. You can do this on social media posting. You can do it on newsletters. There's a variety of ways, but you really just want to educate your potential prospect that there's a different way, there's a better way to do it, and get them to the point where they see that there's a solution, right? Collaboratively work with them. And then once you all agree collectively on the solution, then obviously you want to position yourself to be that person to implement that solution.
Well, I think just in looking at the question that's on the comments, one element that we haven't spent too much time on, and that is coming to the conversation with an informed point of view. Certainly lead magnets and doing response to incoming interest and inquiries is critically important, but there's also the element of establishing yourself as a thought leader, as a company, and as a person, as a salesperson, and that's part of developing a relationship and developing your, I'll say, status as a value-added partner in that dialogue between yourself and a potential client. So if you come to the conversation with a knowledge base that you can demonstrate that you know what's going on in the industry, you know where the trends are, that you've got some ideas that might be in alignment or, ideally maybe a little different, to ask them to think differently about solving their problems. To Tim's point, that creates an environment where you're establishing yourself as more than just somebody coming to the conversation with a credit card and buying them lunch. You're coming to the conversation with some ideas that establish a trusted advisor relationship quicker. And there's a lot of ways in which to do that. Challenger is one, but having that knowledge base in your arsenal as a vendor or as a supplier, certainly a partner, you want to come to that conversation with an informed point of view, so you can start the conversation. The days of sellers coming in and saying, "So what's keeping you up at night?" Those days are kind of gone. Customers expect you to understand what problems they're experiencing and come with solutions. And the more that you can come with a solution that has a unique perspective and you can provide that, the more you're going to be able to position yourself as a trusted advisor, somebody they're going to trust and respect their opinion.
No, it's a good point, but to your point about trust advisor, right? You think about, why marketing and sales always needs to align, why we're all here together, right? You think about it, right? Marketing, let's use that word in quotes, right, is delivering content that creates demand of a product or solution. We're not talking to anybody anyway, right? We have to build trust through not just the lead magnet and how it's done, but also the follow-up, information, right? Emails, building trust. We all need case studies, right? We all need results, right? That's part of the trust factor, even before we talk to sales, right? Sometimes afterward, when CFOs and CEOs need to get validation that the company that they're buying for is good, right? So you think about how that all works together, right? In the trust building, because if I'm a prospect, I'm going to give up an email address for a magnet or whatever it is. Part of that is seeing those testimonials and case studies and logos, and it's just validation that this company knows their stuff. And I even wanted to bring up the blog topic, not that it's a big thing. You talk about SEO. Should we do blogs? Should we not do blogs? You know what blogs do for everybody? It builds trust, but in a point of view that you have, that the company knows stuff, right? And B, you can use some of that content for, ongoing messaging after the lead magnet is, downloaded. So there's a lot of factors there because, again, I'm only going to do business with a company that I trust, right?
Yeah.
So and that's through the whole sales funnel we're talking about from top to bottom, and that's
so sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
That's a critical point that sometimes gets lost, is that the continuum between, let's call it marketing and sales, needs to be very cohesive. And in many cases, it's not. But if marketing is doing its job and creating content and analyzing the market dynamics and coming up with, whatever vehicle or channel is best suited for their ICP, ideal customer profile, then sales needs to make sure that they understand the content and can continue that conversation in a formidable way. If there's a drop off of understanding of what the issues are from marketing to sales, that's going to be a problem. So you need to make sure that marketing and sales are aligned, and marketing is getting feedback from sales. They're the people that are on the street talking to customers and prospects all day long, and they should be feeding information back to marketing, and they can synthesize that into content that can be consumed by outbound activity, certainly inbound requests, but also sales needs to ingest that and make it part of their dialogue.
Well, to your point with Bill and Tim, and social selling and and nurturing and things like that, is you're continuing to build trust, and you need that information just as much as marketing does. You're kind of like in the middle of marketing and sales, right? Kind of like a hybrid, but any kind of outreach you do is still part of trust building, right? And that's how you the deal, like LinkedIn. I mean, you always see like don't sell, but we are selling, but we're kind of strategically selling by building trust. I don't know, Tim, you want to talk more about
I think
the outreach
your
plan?
point of view. So yeah, so if your marketing people are producing really good blog contents that are meant for a blog, really what you want to repurpose that for where it's going to get the most traction using social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, wherever your ICP is. But the other interesting thing you can do is, instead of just relying on Paul doing his marketing campaigns through email, is you can build your own email sequences to your customers and your prospects, and use the case studies, use the quotes, use the point of view to get in front of your customer off of social media. But then you can also use it for social media. You can take the blog post and some point of view, and someone has a post that's relevant, you can take some of the ideas from that and use that as a comment on their post to get them to engage with you. So don't underestimate the fact that if you're big enough to have a marketing department and content, as a sales rep, you want to steal that and repurpose that in your own outbound approaches as well.
Right. And even as far as the cold calling, I mean, I've worked with a lot of companies, a lot of startup companies where the need wasn't really there. And as we do outreach, we'd be asking them how they're currently handling certain situations and start the discussion around that, which would at least get them interested or thinking about it, even though it might not have been something that they had been, actively looking for. So having those discussions, with potential prospects, once you've carved out who, that target market is, and the types of companies that you're looking to go after, those kind of discussions can open the doors and get them thinking about those types of things.
Well, to your point, and there's no reason why, people don't think about this as much, but, if you are reaching out to people and their ICPs and you're having conversations, say, hey, they may not be ready to do a demo yet or anything, but share them the e-guide. Here's something you might be interested in, and
Yep.
take a look, and you might find something of value there, right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know when we were prepping for this on Friday, Bill had made a comment around, what happens if maybe that decision maker just doesn't want to work with you, or that's not a priority, or they want to do it in-house and that person leaves. Now you have the opportunity to sell to someone else, or you might have a decision maker that would love to work with you, but they can't. And then they leave, and Bill finds out that they went to another company, and all of a sudden they're a prospect. So, don't underestimate the adding value to someone that maybe isn't ready to buy or can't buy today, because they may be able to buy in the future.
And you're right. That's where we've seen it both ways. Where, as you said, somebody's working for a company and leaves, goes to another one, picked them up in LinkedIn at the new company and called them there, and they wanted to do business prior to us, or they've been an impediment to us, and that's why we never give up on if they're a good prospect company. A lot of times that turnover works to our advantage, where we'll be calling for a number of months, and finally that individual's no longer there, and there's a new person that's now responsible for those decisions within the organization.
Let me ask you this, Tim, since we're talking about LinkedIn a little bit, and new jobs and people not there. I know, Sales Navigator is important, and maybe some companies don't see that. You might want to talk about that, but I love the option of, in case people don't know, that you can target people with new jobs, like within the last 90 days or something, because those people are always looking for something fresh and new, right? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the easiest way, if you don't have Sales Navigator, is you'll get alerts in your feed about congratulating someone on their new position, right? So the easiest way to do that is I generally will do like a heart or a love instead of just a like, right? So you stand out a little bit and then comment something on that. And then once that's done, then I'll send them a direct message congratulating them, on the role, on their promotion, on the new job, whatever it is, personalize it, make it your own, and relate that to the new person. At that point, you've got them within the first day probably of their role, so they're kind of overwhelmed. So then you want to follow up with them right after a week or a couple months, right after they've kind of settled into their new role. Now, if you have Sales Navigator, that's where you can really identify that they've changed roles in the last 3 months, 90 days, and then you can reach out to all those people. So it's a really powerful tool. And then on Sales Navigator, you can also see if they're looking at your profile as well, right? So if I go and congratulate you on your new role, and I see that you've gone and viewed my profile, that potentially is another buying sign.
Do you recommend, I mean, again, just because of we're recording here, do you recommend, like, for finding people, maybe like a new job is kind of a clue that might be evaluating things anyway, right? To connect with them first versus an in-mail, which you're not connected to. I know people may have questions on that, but.
Yeah, so my recommendation is to follow them, ring their bell, and then if they're making posts on LinkedIn, comment on their post. If they're commenting on other people's posts, comment on their post. If they're dormant and they're just not publicly active, then I would recommend sending them a personalized invite, something unique or insightful that you found from their profile, and then connect with them. The thing that I would not recommend is connecting and pitching. Even if you want to send someone an email, you can send them an email, but you got to lead with value, right? Is there something like a lead Paul's got all these lead magnets. Is there a thing that he's created that he can share with you that would be valuable to you that's not a sales pitch, right? So give them something valuable. That's how I would approach that. A lot of people just connect and they immediately sell, and you're just wasting a lot of your energy doing that way.
Yeah, good point.
So once we've identified a prospect and have qualified them for pursuit, let's say, and we've decided that they're worthy of dedicating resources and time and energy, et cetera, to try to get them to appreciate what we can do as a service or a product, and ultimately conclude with a contract or a commercial arrangement. I'm associated with a company that has done some surveys of small to medium-sized companies and tried to solicit what are some of the top problems that SMBs are dealing with relative to sales. And there were 4 general areas that kind of bubbled to the top. The top one was struggling with sales methodology, which we've talked about a bit here. But once you've acquired a new opportunity or a new lead and have qualified it through SQL, how do you manage that sales process, and then ultimately to closure? So that was the top one, struggling with sales methodology. Number 2 was tied with sales strategy and sales analysis, and 4th was sales organization. So just to go back to the top one, my view of that would be, one, we talked about this a little bit earlier, is make sure you've got an ICP. If you don't, certainly establish your ideal customer profile so that all your marketing and outbound and inbound lead generation is geared around making sure that you're identifying those key customer profiles that you're looking for. But once you've done that, my recommendation would be to also look at on your target audience, what is the buying process? A lot of times we talk about the sales process, and that's important, but you need to map that into what the buying process is. And that might be, changing from different verticals that you service to certainly different companies have their own buying processes. So understanding that buying process and then mapping your sales process into that is critically important. And along those lines, I'd say there's 3 key elements. There's a lot of different methodologies out there, and they're all good. If you don't have a methodology, pick one. But in my mind, they boil down to maybe 3 general elements. 1, establish a critical, compelling event that the customer is agreeing to share with you. What's causing them to make a decision from a business perspective? What is that compelling event that they need to take some action against that's going to improve their business? And then what is the sequence of events that will lead up to that compelling event that they need to execute on their side, and then as you as a potential vendor need to execute on your side? So you've got a roadmap, if you will, from now until that compelling event that they're going to make a decision by. And then finally, and we've talked about it, a bit already, that what is your unique value? And this is something that sometimes gets lost in just the general conversation around why a company might be taking an action. What's their intent as to why they're hitting your website? Well, they have some idea that they need to, execute on. But what is it that you're going to bring to the table that's unique as opposed to all their other alternatives that they might choose from that creates incremental value? So there's 3 questions that you might want to think about trying to get your prospect to answer for you. Don't necessarily ask them these questions, but in your conversations, you might want to elicit from them, why do something? So what's the purpose of this particular project? Why do this project now? So what's the sense of urgency? What's the compelling event? And why do it with us? What's the unique value that you bring to the table that would cause your prospect to do business with you?
No, totally. And that's where it goes back to, website optimization, messaging, everything we're doing is even every email, every phone call, whatever it is, that's a clue that we're giving them, that reminds them that, maybe I should eventually do business with this company, right?
Yeah,
And, when you talk about like the websites and things like that and messaging and to your point, John, about, the buyer personas, right? Because that's how we start in the first place, with your ICP/buyer persona. It's a marketing and sales thing, but it's the point though is pain, right? What are the pains that the typical company we're targeting have, and how do we solve those pains, right? And then why choose us to solve those pains, right? So again, you have to really be specific on that, because that's how Bill has to do his job. That's how Tim has to do his job. That's how John has to, we're all have to be all on the same page about the what, the why, and the why us.
Sure. And our biggest competition in sales is always the status quo, right? Them either doing nothing or staying with the current solution. So exactly, why should they do something, and what's going to compel them to do something sooner than later? If you can get to that point, then it's a matter of differentiation from that point on. But
sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, so I think the challenge in today's environment, I would say like January on, is the economic and the monetary numbers has really shifted, right? Before, people were willing to spend money to try things and maybe do experimental stuff, and now they don't, right? So you're seeing a lot of activity on like social media and just talking to people, at least in my experience with my clients, that it's becoming an economic, do I have the money? And if I really going to spend $1 on the solution or the service you're offering, it's going to be a trade-off, right? So before Silicon Valley Bank, everyone's flush with cash, everyone's paying stuff. If you're a SaaS provider today, your investors are telling you to get paying clients, not just end users. And the other thing besides that is people are just delaying decisions. So there's a lot of great methodologies out there, obviously, but simple things like confirming they're going to be on the next meeting, right? Like, get that verbal mental commitment from them that they're gonna take the next call. All of that kind of pre-closing isn't just closing the final sale, it's getting them to commit to the next step, that we're all in alignment on what the true need is, what matters to you personally, your organization, your role within that organization, our relationship, what really is important to you, Mr. Customer, Mr. Prospect, and are we agreeing that we're aligned on those things? And get those little baby steps of commitment will make your life a lot easier. And it's so much more important now when there's just not as many sales opportunities out there, to make sure that you're really qualifying the lead, that it's real for you and you can add real value to your prospect, or you're all just wasting time.
Yeah, Tim, you brought up some great points, and those milestones along the way are critical, and getting the agreement from the prospect that this in fact is the sequence of events that needs to take place for us to make a decision by X date. That needs to come from the prospect. It can't be you as the vendor saying it. It has to come from them, and they have to agree to it. So that, and inevitably it happens. There's a missed milestone. Something happens. Somebody's on vacation, gets sick, whatever. And so we miss a milestone. So now you've got a document that you can point to in collaboration with your prospect that says, hey, we were supposed to be at this point last Monday, or a week off. How do we catch up to make sure that we can still maintain our commitment to conclude this process by the date that we've agreed to? So you've got a roadmap that you can come back to. Sometimes it's left to be just a verbal conversation, and then you've got nothing to refer to as a document. So it really helps to get that agreement from the prospect.
All right. Then can I anything else on the topic, because I have something else I want to throw in here.
Yeah,
sure.
Which is SaaS business. We're so used to different ways of selling in the old school of software and tech, but this is today, right? And SaaS business is left and right. And where the lead magnet fits in, I think it's still problem solving, right? But it's as it's a different kind of business model, right? With a lead magnet is just a trial when you think about it, right? Because you have names that have clues that there's a business problem and they found a tool, right? And decided to play with it or something, right? And what's the deal there is this enough should I change what I already have? Or do I just keep, like you said, complacency, keep it because I just was going to play? But I use that in a nice way. But, we all do those kinds of things. We try different things and all of a sudden we got, it may not be right for us. But I guess the point is anybody who signs up for something, means that, and there's a potential enterprise sale for it or like company wide that they might be been tasked to say, go find a new BI tool or a CRM tool or something like that, because we just want to see what's out there, which also means that they have an issue there with their current solution. Right. So, I wouldn't, for the SaaS type company, it's a big thing, right? To, try to segue somebody from trial to buyer, right? And I guess it's a business decision whether a SaaS product should be a trial or just a straight demo. I mean, anybody thoughts on that?
So I'll chime in. Yeah, I've seen all versions of the above, right? There's debate on when to do the demo, as an example, or should I put a demo on my website so that people can just log in and click and get a taste of whatever it is I'm offering, or do I bake into my agreement some trial period up front where it's free or low cost, etc. I guess in my mind, ideally, each situation is going to be different, so there's not necessarily one size fits all. But in my opinion, if you can get to a point where you are demonstrating uniquely to that prospect your capabilities, not showing a generic demo, but showing a demo that is specific to that company, ideally that's where you want to get to, because that shows that you've understood the conversations that you've had up to that point. You understand their specific pain points. You can put things in the demo that speak directly to the decision makers that are hopefully in the meeting, and it will differentiate yourself from the other guy that's just showing general stuff. So that's can you always get to that point? Maybe not always, but that's, I think, where you want to try to get to, is get to that bespoke demo on that specific opportunity.
It almost becomes it almost becomes almost like a double demo, right? Because the first set is asking questions. We all get emails when we sign up for things, with clarifications on the need, right? So they can hone the demo to their business needs, right? Whether it's online forms or the follow-up questions, or or Bill's team makes calls to clarify things too. But the more personalized the demo is, the higher success rate, obviously, right?
Right.
So 6 months ago, right? If you were doing a enterprise sale, obviously you could do a custom demo. If your software was very complex, you never would want to do a free trial, right? Because it's all about that onboarding experience. If your product is straightforward and easy to implement, then it's all about good customer success, all of that stuff on the back end once they sign up, to make sure that they, and like in my word at Oracle, you give them free stuff, but you got to get them to consume the free stuff, right? So, but now with tools like artificial intelligence, whether it's video or text or all these different technologies out there, now you can make really personalized custom demos. You can give a lot of value with chatbots on helping them get up to speed on the free trial. So it's just a game changer in the last 3 to 6 months on what AI is capable of doing to let you go and sell a complex product, is do it yourself, right? And do the free trial, or do custom demos that you can then use AI to customize the demo that you send out to your prospect. So it's a completely different world now than how I would have answered that question 6 months ago.
That's a great point.
Yep.
So if you're listening and you're not looking at AI, I'd spend more time on AI in the next couple weeks, couple months to get up to speed on that.
In fact, we're not even here. It's AI doing our presentation right now. So
That's right.
It could have been.
could be, right? You know,
You could,
Oh.
that's probably a whole separate webinar for us. to
well, I
chat
know
about.
it'd be fun, right?
So if you want that, all right, I'm going to mute myself.
Has anybody on this call experimented with AI at all? Just curious. You can put in chat if you like. If you played with ChatGPT and did messaging with it, and it's okay. We won't tell. But it is powerful. But the point is, it's research. You still have to tweak it, customize it, and have your voice for the most part.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is, use it, leverage it. It's incredible to accelerate and, as Tim pointed out, customize, but don't dismiss keeping human intervention as part of the process. You still need to, do your checks on it.
George says ChatGPT is his best friend.
Yeah.
That's good.
And that's a good point. I mean, a lot of times when we'll have an initial conversation with somebody, it takes different turns depending upon, the direction that they want to go. You've just got to be able to stay with that flow of conversation to, eventually get them back around to where you want them to be. But too many people, when they would call up, would just be too focused on just kind of hammering them down. And I think, we always told our clients that, we're building a relationship for you, and that starts with, an initial phone call, an initial discussion around something, and then, as Tim and John alluded to, making sure that you've got some kind of concrete follow-up activity, and then that also happens. So there's certain things that I don't know that Chat GPT or a lot of the AI products would be able to replace that human interaction.
Well, it doesn't solve everything, but there's a lot of your email scripts, your research. So if you're doing research on all these customers and your boss tells you go chase the top 5,000 customers, like when I was at Oracle, my first accounts, I could upload my list into ChatGPT and say, tell me what are the pain points that these customers are having. Okay, based on that, tell me what email sequence I should be sending them. Now I'm sending personalized emails out to my prospects. And what would have been, like one guy told me it took him 30 hours to do a marketing newsletter. He does it in 30 minutes now because ChatGPT does a lot of research for him. It gives him a lot of the structure of it. Then he's going in and adding his own unique personalization to it, his unique insights, all those things. And now imagine you can really cover all of your prospective accounts, all the personas, whether it's the decision maker, the influencers, the end users, all of those people you can now touch in a personalized way using artificial intelligence and automation.
Well, here's an example to your point is, again, just using the tool, it's out there, right? Is if you have, say, 4 different industries you're going after, theoretically, and you might ask with your tool tech program or whatever is, what are the, let's say you sell ERP system to 4 industries, right? So you might say, what are the problems with ERP in the manufacturing industry versus the hospitality industry or something else, right? You might have different answers. I don't know, because it might be researching, how it fits. I know there's some generic stuff, but maybe there's some, at least part of that buyer persona. I mean, it can support what you already know about customers, but it might provide some other feeder content, say, oh, we should mention, this topic or this topic, and let's spell that out further. Again, it's using the word clue to close. Well, ChatGPT can provide clues as well to, based on research that it does on pain points and things like that. And, it could give you, based on that, we'll go back in and say, well, give me now 5 different good white paper titles that might attract these people in your brainstorming of what's the most compelling title. So
we're like, hey, these are, and we're not doing it here, but a lot of my video calls, I record it and AI summarizes it. So now I have a nice summary, and I use, Bant, and I know John and probably some people on this call are familiar with it. And I say, look, put that call right into my CRM, and it determines what the budget is. It puts it in the budget field of my CRM. Then I also get a nice summary email that I can send out to my prospect. as a follow-up to that meeting. That's all artificial intelligence. It's all note-taking. It's summarizing. It's putting it in the right buckets. What questions? Hey, here's all my notes from my meeting. What questions should I be asking to, figure out what the pain is, or are there things that I'm missing about my discovery process? AI can give you some different insights into that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. We're almost done our presentation today. It's about, we only have like 10 more minutes. Does anybody have anything else to add in before we ask for a Q&A?
Sorry for the fire alarm, by the way.
Oh, is that what that? We didn't hear it. So,
Okay.
that's okay.
My
Well,
noise
you're on fire.
canceling.
You're on fire anyway, Tim. So, but well, again, I guess in summary of this whole topic, no matter what business you're in, tech, whatever, is it's always more compelling to salespeople when they know their prospects have business issues. It's a better conversation. It's a better way to build trust, because people have valuable time. But if you could talk to companies who already have that clue, your closing rates go up. You're spending more time with those people. You're engaging them better, and at the end of the day, you grow more revenue. Because you're spending more time with companies that have that intent. So that's really why we're talking about clue to close, because it beats. Again, it just helps the whole process when you're dealing with companies who already have identified and raised their hand that we're thinking about something in the company. Ready to buy yet now? No, that's what marketing and sales is all about. But at least it narrows the field to these potentials. So, but I wanted to thank the people here on the call, Bill, Tim, and John, for having an engaging conversation. And, on this topic. And what I'm going to do is, does anybody have any questions? Because I have a closing slide, which I have to figure out. Anybody have any questions at all? Yeah, I'm going to share the screen. Okay. So if anybody has any questions at all, or wants to engage with any of us, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4, all 4 of us, send me an email here, mentioning that you're on our call and or whatever, and we'll talk about your needs, and then bring in the right people to talk about lead and sales generation as one, social selling, what everybody does. We all have a critical part of the whole sales funnel and optimizing it. And if you're optimized, sales without marketing, you're only doing half the job. And the same thing with social selling and, and engagement that Bill does. Everything has to be top notch, or else it's just your whole system's just not going to be optimized. And so keep that in mind, that everything has to be optimized, and in order to drive efficient revenue and ROI. So that's how you contact me. We'll stop sharing now.
Great.
So anyway, that's it. So thanks for joining. You guys can hang on, and I will end the broadcast.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
But